We don't like to admit it, but lust is one of the greatest battles of our time. It's subtle, it's everywhere, and it hides behind excuses. If you want to overcome it, you have to start by being brutally honest with yourself. Too often we look for someone else to blame. Men say, it's the way women dress, or it's summertime, look at how people walk around. But let's stop for a second. Isn't that the same excuse Adam gave in the Garden of Eden? He said, the woman you gave me, she led me to sin. And ever since, humanity has been pointing the finger outward instead of inward. But here's the truth. No one makes you lust. Lust doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. What we're really fighting is not someone else's clothing or actions, but the state of our own hearts. When we confess, we're told to confess our own sins, not the sins of others. So when someone says, well, it's their fault, look how they dress, that's not confession, that's deflection. That's pride pretending to be humility. Let me ask you this. If it were your mother, your sister, or your daughter walking down the street dressed in the same way, would you feel the same lust? For most men, the answer is a strong no. Of course not. Why? Because love already fills that space. Real love protects us from reducing someone into an object, and that's the heart of the problem. Lust is not just a struggle with passion, it's a lack of love. When you look at another human being and strip them of their dignity in your mind, reducing them to nothing but an object of desire, you're not acting out of love, you're acting out of emptiness, and that emptiness grows every time you feed it. And in today's world, there's a fuel source for that emptiness that's everywhere. Pornography. It's so accessible that young men often feel trapped in it. But let's be clear, pornography isn't just harmless entertainment, it's spiritual poison. As many wise fathers have said, pornography is the iconography of the devil. Why? Because it takes something holy, the human body, created in the image of God, and twists it into something cheap, consumable, and degrading. It reduces a person to a product. It feeds lust, fuels addiction, and leaves the soul empty and restless. The more you consume it, the more it consumes you. It creates slavery, because at first you think you're in control. You tell yourself, I can stop any time. But as Saint Isaac the Syrian said, whoever does not voluntarily withdraw himself from temptation will involuntarily become its slave. Let that sink in. If you don't turn away from it by choice, it will take away your choice. You'll be dragged deeper, captured by sin, enslaved by something you thought you controlled. And once you're a slave, resisting becomes harder and harder, because your own willpower has been chained. So how do we fight back? Like every temptation, lust has to be cut off at the root. You can't wait until it grows and takes over. By then it's too late. Think of it like a spark in dry grass. If you stamp it out immediately, no problem. But if you let it sit, it spreads, and before you know it, you've got a wildfire you can't control. Lust is the same. It starts with a glance, a thought, an indulgence. If you don't cut it off immediately, it spreads into obsession, addiction, slavery. That's why discipline is key. You don't fight lust by waiting until you're overwhelmed. You fight it by preparing your heart before the temptation comes. But it's not just about saying no. If all you do is resist, you'll eventually grow weary. The secret is to replace lust with something greater. Love. When you look at others, train your heart to see them as human beings, not objects, as daughters, sisters, mothers, children of God, not tools for your pleasure. When your heart is filled with real love, lust loses its power. Love sees dignity. Love sees worth. Love sees Christ in every person. Lust only sees flesh. And if you want to win the battle, you have to choose which vision you're going to live by. Here's the thing. Lust doesn't just damage you spiritually. It damages your relationships, your mental health, your ability to love and commit. When you reduce people to objects in your private thoughts, it bleeds into how you treat them in real life. That's why so many people struggle with intimacy. They've rewired their brains to see pleasure, not people. They've taught themselves to consume, not to connect. And in the process, they've robbed themselves of the ability to truly love. But here's the good news. You can change. You don't have to stay a slave. You can walk away from the sources of temptation. You can starve lust and feed love. You can retrain your heart to see people the way Christ sees them. And yes, it's a fight. Yes, it takes time. But every battle begins with a choice. A choice to stop blaming others. A choice to confess honestly. A choice to cut off temptation at the root. A choice to replace lust with love. Because in the end, this isn't just about avoiding sin. It's about becoming the kind of person who loves with purity, dignity, and truth. And that's a battle worth fighting.